Okay, let's get started. Maybe you were expecting a different professor right now. However, Professor Hollis and I decided to change our schedules a little bit today. So actually, we'll be having my class first. We'll be talking about generational differences. After this lesson, Professor Nolan will speak, and then at 3 p.m., Professor Hollis will have his class. So welcome, and if you are here to see Professor Hollis, I'm so sorry. You'll have to come back at 3 p.m. You are definitely encouraged to stay right now if you have the time. And as I mentioned, we'll be talking about age and generation gaps. We have a few students already. Lovely. Very good. Dawn, hi. Thank you for being here. Welcome back. Oh, we have more students. HJ, hello. Yes. Yoonjung? Yes. Youngju, hello. Good. It's great to see everybody back after midterms. How were your midterm tests? How were they? Did they go well? I hope so. Hi, Ann. Okay, great. Okay, so why don't we just jump in? So today we're going to be talking about age and generations. My first question for you to warm up is, what is a generation? When we say generation in English, what are we referring to? I'll give you a moment to type your answers. Who could give us the best definition of a generation? And if you say girls' generation, I would probably laugh, but that may not be the best definition. But girls' generation makes some pretty cool music. What is a generation? Anybody? We have a few students coming in. Welcome to those of you who are joining us right now. We're talking about generation gaps today. So what is a generation? Good job. Yes, and you are correct. Group of ages. That's so perfectly said. So we can think of a generation as basically a group of people who are all born around the same time, right? A group of ages, just as N said. So I think that a generation typically is about 20 to 30 years because it takes generally 20 to 30 years for a person to be born, to grow up, to become an adult, and then to meet somebody and create a family of their own, right? So in about, 20 to 30 years, a person matures and starts a new generation. So that's usually how we count generations. So as you can guess, when all of that time passes, the world changes a lot. So people from one generation can be very different from the people in another generation. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. So we're going to learn a few expressions to help us in our discussion today. And we're going to start really basic and work our way up. N said age. Now that's a great starting point when we talk about generations. So let's talk about age first. So my question for you is, how can we ask about somebody's age, in English? I'm multitasking. I'm trying to type it and speak it. There we go. How can we ask somebody what their age is in English? Let's come up with a good question. Let's say you are comfortable with this person. You have a close relationship. You'd like to ask about their age. What question? Perfect. Yeah, of course, HJ. Yeah. How old are you? Great, great. Do you know any others? How old are you? Mm-hmm. We could say it differently. We could say, what age are you? What is your age? Very good. Yes, yes. Park, thank you so much. So we have like that. We could say, yeah, how old are you? What age are you? What is your age? Mm-hmm. And yes, I was just about to mention that could be a little bit impolite, especially if you are not close with the person. If you're close, I think it's okay to ask about somebody's age. However, if you're meeting a stranger for the first time, you have a very distant relationship, maybe it's not the most polite to ask them their age right away. But there are a lot of ways that you can guess somebody's age. I'm wondering if you could tell me about some ways you can guess somebody's age. What are some clues? How can you find out somebody's age if you don't want to ask them directly? I'd love to hear from you first. How can we ask or find out somebody's age? Yes, good job, Park. So when were you born? Sure, you can ask that. When were you born? If that's a little bit too direct, you can do other things like ask them, what year did you graduate, right? If we can know somebody's graduation date, you could ask them about their high school graduation or more commonly their university or college graduation. You can ask them, oh, when did you graduate? And then you can kind of guess, they graduated then. I graduated at another time, and you can mentally calculate what their age could be. Very good. Park says, when were you born? We need to use the past. When were you born? When did you graduate? Very good, very good. Any other ways to guess a person's age? Are there any clues about the way they look, the way they dress, the way they speak, and hair color and the amount of hair? Sure. Very good. So you could have some visual cues about the person. Very good. Anyone else? How do you find out somebody's age without asking them? Any other ideas? Okay. Good job, everyone. We'll leave it there. Wrinkles, skin condition. Surely. Okay, great. So we've already looked at these questions. How old are you? And what's your age? If you're close with the person, feel free to ask the question. And here are some very typical answers. So we could answer, let's take me for example. I'm 30 years old. So I would just say I'm 30 years old. The years old is optional. You can simply say, I'm 30, I'm 28, I'm 15, I'm 15 years old, I'm 30 years old. So this can be both ways, short or long. Another way, maybe you've heard it before, maybe not, is I'm 30 years of age, or I'm, 52 years of age. You could definitely hear that expression, years of age. However, what do you think? Do you think this is formal or informal? So is this very, very polite or not polite at all? What do you think? If somebody tells you, I have a daughter of 24 years of age, instead of saying, I have a daughter who is 24. Yay, thank you, Youngju. And N, yes, this is more formal. So generally, we don't use this in our daily interactions. However, if you're in a very formal environment or you're writing something very formal, this could be used. Very good. Also, if you do not want to say your age, you want to keep it secret, you could say, I'm in my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on. Or I'm in my teens. Maybe you're a teenager. I'm in my teens. I'm in my 20s. I'm in my 30s. So you can give the decade range. Or you can make that range a little more specific. You could say, I'm in my early 30s. I'm in my mid 40s. I'm in my late 20s. So these are a lot of different ways that we can express our age. So before we move on, I have a question for you. The question is, what do you think is the best age to be? So you could say, for example, I think it's best to be in your 20s, in your 30s, in your mid-teens. So what do you think is the best age to be and why? Maybe you have a specific age. Maybe you'll say, I think it's best to be 18. It could be that number, or it could be an age range. So I'd like to hear from you. What do you think is the best age to be and why? Is younger always better? What do you think? Perhaps younger people would say, I think it would be great to be in my 20s or my 30s. You know, children always dream of being older. And once we're older, we generally dream of being younger again. So how do you feel about that? What do you think is the best age to be? My answer personally, well, I would say I haven't lived yet through my entire 30s, 40s, 50s, so I don't know what those ages would be like, but I think maybe mid-20s was very nice. So around the age of 25. What do you think? What do you think is the best age to be? Oh, we have an answer here. Hey, Jung Lee says, I'm in my 50s. Very good, very good. You said that perfectly. N says, in my case, my late 20s was the best age because I got a job at that time. Perfect English. Very good. Park says, I am in my early 50s. Now is the best age. Hey, I love that answer. I think that's perfect to say now, whatever age you are, now is the best age to be. Very good. Anybody else? Okay, we'll leave that open for discussion. If you have an idea, type it as we move on. Very good. So we have more expressions. If you really do not want to say your age, so if you really, really don't want to give your age, here are some kind of cute, kind of funny, common replies. So the first one is, it's an expression, it's a saying, age is only a number, or age is just a number. So a lot of people might say, age is just a number. It means age is not that important. If I tell you my age, it makes no difference. It's not an important piece of information you need to know about me. However, of course, in certain cultures, your age matters more for your social situation, such as in Korea. But in some Western countries, we don't really mind or think too much about somebody's age. So we say, age is just a number, like this. This one is funny. A lot of people could say, I'm over the hill. I'm over the hill. People who are around their middle age, so the time could vary, but we could say maybe someone in their 40s to 50s. We consider that generally kind of the middle of a person's lifespan. So we like just to say, okay, middle age, right? Or I'm over the hill. It's kind of like there's a hill that you're climbing in your life. Oh, and then like that. So I'm over the hill is just a funny way of saying I'm in my middle age. Another one, this one is usually used by very elderly people, very older people. They like to say, I'm no spring chicken. I don't know where this expression originated from, but spring chicken represents someone who's very young and fresh, like a baby chick. So I'm no spring chicken, so I'm not this young bird, basically. So it's kind of an old-fashioned but funny expression older people could use. Ah, very good. So we have more answers coming in. I'll take a quick break. Let's see here. So answering the question of what is the best age to be, we have Haejung, I'm in my late 30s, not so young and not too old. Very good, very good. That's perfect English as well. Youngju says, I think the best age could be the mid-20s. They have lots of options to choose how to live, how to enjoy the rest of their lives. Very good. It's a time of important decision making. Excellent. Okay, we have Farm saying, I think the 30s is the best age because it's a time when it becomes more clear what kind of job I'm suitable for. That's right. I think that maybe in one's 30s and 40s, you really get to develop and enrich your career. It's a time for great growth in your career, and you can become an expert in your field. Excellent. Very good answers. Thank you. Okay, we'll jump back over here again. So we have, of course, the expression age is just a number, meaning age is not important. I'm over the hill means I'm middle-aged. I'm no spring chicken means I'm very old. And you could even just say, well, I'm getting old. I'm getting older. I'm getting older can be said by anybody, right? Because when we age, we always get a year older every year. But I'm getting old refers to more elderly and senior years. So you could say, oh, I'm getting old. It means, okay, I'm becoming an older person. I'm reaching an older state of life. And we talked about this before. I was born in the 1980s. I was born in the 80s. You could say that as well. I was born in the 90s. I was born in the 1990s. I was born in the 60s. I was born in the 1960s. Both ways are okay. Very good. Okay, so we don't need right now to say our age. We can keep our age generally a secret if you'd like. But I'd like to know, what are the advantages and disadvantages of being your age at the moment? So, what's it like to be your age right now? What are some good points? What are some bad points about being your age? If you do not want to say your age, we can look at this. We can say our general age category. So when we go through the stages of life, there are lots of different words that we use in English. The first one, when you're just born, we say, we drop the presenting thing. Oh, that's funny. So I'll just type them actually, because I don't want to pick it up. Okay, I'll type them in here. So we have, first, when you're born, we can call you newborn, right? You're newborn, you're a new baby, right? We go from newborn to baby, to toddler, to child, to teenager, adult, middle-aged, and senior, like that. Oh, hi. Everyone, you're so kind. Right, so I'll try to type them a little nicer for you. Like this. Excuse me, everyone, while I type. And if you want, you can answer the question about being your age at the moment. What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages of being an adult, someone who is middle-aged, perhaps a senior. If there are any teenagers in here, you could say about that as well. So life stages we have, I'll make that a little nicer. Newborn, here we go. I'll type them one by one. Newborn, obviously no one is that age in here right now. We have baby, we have a toddler. That's somebody who is very young, about 1 to 3 years old, just starting to walk. Maybe some students in here have a toddler, a baby around that age, or maybe you have a child. We'll go here, child. Then we have teenager. There could be maybe some teenagers in our class today. We have adult, which I think most of us are. Adult obviously includes middle-aged and senior, but a lot of people like to make that distinction. So as you can see, there are many, many words we can use. Here we are. So let me check out our chat and get caught up again after my board disaster. All right. Unju says, I'm sad to be 11. I do not want to study. Okay, so that's right. We do have a variety of age groups in our lesson today. So that's right. There's a lot of studying to be done when you're a child, when you're a teenager, and into your adult years as well in university or college. Very good. Farm says, I'm a teenager at heart. Very good. That's a very cute expression. I'm young at heart. That's another expression we use. I'm young at heart. My mind stays young. Okay, we have Youngju saying, okay, the advantage of being in their place of life, their life stage is stable life routine. That's right. As you get older, you develop more stable life routines. Excellent. Park says, getting older is to be wiser. Yes, that's a great advantage of aging. We can develop more life experiences, develop more wisdom. Very good. Hey, Junglee says, over the hill, middle-aged. Okay, mid-age. So I wonder what the advantages and disadvantages are. So let's see if anyone else has a comment on that. We'll wait a few more minutes, and then we'll jump into our discussion. So this is the real point of today's lesson, to talk about age gaps. And we could also call it the generation gap. So if we look at generation gap, I'll type it here for you. A gap, G-A-P, gap, not the store, right? A gap is a break in the continuity of something, right? So it's like there is some divide or broken piece, something that's missing. So if we take the words generation and gap, we can see that generation gap talks about something that is not connected between the generations. So we can think of the generation gap, differences, big differences, perhaps in the values and the behaviors in one generation to another. So for example, a generation could be between you and your parents, or between you and your children, right? So think of a period of about 20 to 30 years. So we're going to jump in now to generation gaps and what that can be like. So I'm going to share with you, yes, Park, I believe so. I'm going to share with you the words we use in Canada, my country, and as well as in America. We use these expressions, I'm putting them in the chat, to define the different age categories, the different generations. So if you were born between the 1940s to about the 1960s, in Canada and America, we would call you the baby boomer, right? Someone who was born after wartime, basically. There's a lot of soldiers returning home and good economic conditions in certain countries at that time, so it led to a lot of births. Then they had children. The baby boomers had children. They became, we call them the Generation X. We say it's between the 60s to the 80s. If you were born between the mid-60s to about the early 1980s, you could be in that category. After that, we have millennials. You might have heard this word used a lot. These people are generally 1980s to 1990s. After that, we have the Generation Z. So this one, people debate a lot. We're not exactly sure what the starting point and cutoff point is for this generation. Most people say about the end of the 1990s all the way until now. There are about 4 different generations all in the workforce working together. And that can cause a lot of conflict, which we'll talk about a bit later. So these are the categories we use in Canada and America. However, there could, and I suspect there could be, and there are different words in Korean to talk about the generation differences in the generation, how can I say, titles. So maybe in Korea, you might not say baby boomer for people born in a certain generation. There have been different historical moments in Korea that could cause the creation of different generations. So I would like to know more now about Korea. So maybe we could talk about generations in Korea. So we'll start with a very open question. Is there a generation gap in Korea? So is there a difference between you and your parents or between you and your children? Let's see what you have to say about the generation gap in Korea. And let me catch up on some messages here. Oh, Haejung, yes. Haejung said earlier that middle-aged, being an adult, you have to make many responsibilities. Very good. Excellent. And Hyun-suk Jung, I never thought I was an adult. When I heard from a friend in his 20s, you're an adult, it was shocking. Okay, very good, very good. So maybe you feel very young. That's a good thing. DV says, I am a millennial. High five. We have another millennial in here. Very good. We could talk a bit later about sometimes millennials may have a little bit of a bad reputation. And we can talk about why you think that is. Unju says, my sister is about 27 and I am 11. So 15 to 16 years. Wow, yes, I think that is quite a big age gap. It could be that there is a generation gap between you and your older sister. Thank you for sharing. So this is all, I'll try this again, Unju. Yes, so this means generation gap. Very good. N says there are so many generation gaps in Korea. Okay, I would love to hear a little bit more about that. They called me Generation X. I was born in 1980. Okay, very good, very good. DV says, I think there is a generational gap nowadays. Excellent English. People have different views on everyday life. That's so true. So we can talk about how each generation might have a different perspective or a different viewpoint regarding a lot of issues in society. Very good. So let's hear a little bit more about generation gaps in Korea. I'm going to ask now about, there we go, the workplace. So right now, I found a really interesting thing that I would like to share. This is from a study. I'll post it into our chat room, and I'll also read it. So basically, there was a survey. Oh, I'm so sorry. My message for you is too long. I'll break it into parts. There was a survey, here we go, done by the Korean Chamber of Commerce, and they surveyed people Oh, it's my message is still too big. Okay, I will not type it. I'll just read it. So they asked people in the workplace a bunch of questions. One was about overtime. I'll type that word. Working overtime. So staying late at your office, maybe for no extra pay. So overtime. Are you okay with working overtime? Is it important? Older people said, yes, it's okay, no problem. So those 50 and over said, yes, I understand. I should sacrifice my personal time for the company. But people in the younger age group, so some people in their 20s, didn't really agree with overtime. They said, no, I do not want to spend my time working extra. So that's an example of a generation gap in the workplace. Another question they asked was, are you okay with sacrificing your personal time? And of course, the older generation said, it's okay. The younger generation said, not so much. So we can see generation gaps in the workplace. Hyun-suk says, it would be rude if the manager asked his young friends to have a company dinner without making an appointment in advance. Our generation always had to go. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. So you brought up a really good point about how there are a lot of expectations in the workplace. One of them being the company dinners. So I think by appointment, do you mean a meeting or 회식, like some kind of company dinner? I think that it is hard if your boss or your senior or your superior at work suddenly, right? Like 갑자기, suddenly they tell you, we need to have a meeting, right? We need to go out and eat together after work. That could be hard. So you said that, yes, making an appointment in advance is much more polite. Very good. Okay, we have Farm saying, these days I'm a victim of overtime. Oh no, that doesn't sound very fun. And I hope that you're at least being compensated. I hope you're being paid for your time. Good luck in fighting. I hope that situation improves for you soon. Your English is perfect. I'm a victim of overtime. Very good. Okay, N says, yes, there is a generation gap. Baby boomers are addicted to overtime. They forced me to work overtime without additional payment. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. You are sounding a little bit like Farm. Both of you may be facing a similar predicament. So I wish I could have a better answer or some advice for you, but I hope it improves soon. But your English is perfect. Thank you for sharing that. Youngju says, gathering after hours, they don't want to go back home. Okay. I've heard about there being many rounds. Round means like kind of you go to one establishment and then you move on to the next establishment and then the next. So for example, if you have a meeting with your coworkers, first you eat, second you drink coffee at a cafe, and third you go to some, I don't know, pub and drink some alcohol. That would be 3 rounds, right? So 3 different places that you had to visit. I've heard that some gatherings tend to go on and on and on, so last a really long time. That can be difficult. I hope that you have some strategies or ways to escape those meetings. Maybe, the phone call, I have an emergency like this, and then excuse yourself. There are probably other ways that you could hopefully escape those situations. Very good. Thank you. Farm says, can generational differences cause problems at work? I think there are still many problems caused by the generation gap. However, the younger generation is only silent. Wow, that's a really interesting perspective. I think that sometimes it could be hard for younger people to speak up. They may lack confidence or knowledge of how to express themselves well and have them, be taken seriously. So that's a really interesting perspective. Thank you for sharing. And again, great English. Okay, Youngju, you're welcome. And DV says, yes, my co-teacher and I have different views on education. Wow, that is a huge topic. We can definitely talk about how education has changed between the generations. So sometimes when I speak with older students who had grown up in Korea, they tell me about their teachers using physical punishment. I'll type that word. We also call it corporal punishment. Basically, it's when your teacher, when you are in school, they slap you. They hit your hand, or they do something like that to give you punishment, discipline. So I know that is something that has changed within the generations in Korea. So in the past, teachers could hit children. Today, that cannot happen at all. That is a serious problem, and these teachers would face legal consequences. So that is an example. Thank you, DV. Oh, there's more. DV says, my co-teacher thinks kids should learn by sitting and listening to the teacher. Well, I think there are different ways to learn. Interactive learning is popular nowadays. Very good, very good. So that's another way that views on education can change. Sometimes in the past, teachers thought students should just sit and learn, right? But maybe teachers nowadays promote more, interactive. They use a lot more different strategies. So lots of different learning styles, I should say, for the students. Okay, we have Farm. Today without work, it is my happiness to communicate with you through YouTube like this. Oh, thank you. That is really kind. Now, why don't we change the topic a little bit? We're going to now talk about generation gaps in terms of love and dating. So the question is, do you think that it is okay to date or marry with somebody of a different generation? So is it okay to date and marry with somebody much older than you or much younger than you? What do you think? So we'll switch gears and we'll move on to that question because I would really love to know your thoughts on this one. So is it okay to date somebody from a different generation? Let's see. Okay. Oh, we have more messages. Haejung says, someday the silence will go out. I'm afraid of it. So I think balancing is important between all generations. Yes, that's so well said. Perfect English. There needs to be balance and understanding between the different generations. So everybody feels like their voice is heard. Very good. Okay, so we have some funny and very interesting answers coming in already about can you date somebody from a different generation? Farm says, no, definitely not. DV says, I think it is okay as long as both people are understanding and patient. Okay, great perspective. So some people very opposed. Other people could say, well, if this person is truly your soulmate, if you truly understand and love each other, then it could be fine. Great. And we have a lot of silent students. So I'm wondering, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? Anybody else? Is it okay to date somebody from a different generation? Do you know anybody who has done that? Do you think it's okay in certain situations and not in others? If that question is too personal or political, that's okay. We'll move on. But if you have a thought, share it with us. I think it's all okay. Okay, very good. Next question is it possible for parents and children to be friends. So this is a question of can you be friends with your parents? Do you think that's okay? There's a generation separating you from your parents. So what do you think? Can you be friends with your parents? Are you friends with your parents or are you friends with your children? Let me know. Okay, we have more answers coming in from the previous question. Park says, I think it is okay to marry with similar ages, I think you're trying to say. Yeah, so marry somebody of a similar age. Sure, okay, very good perspective. That could certainly make your relationship maybe a little bit easier because you have a lot in common. N says, it's okay, but I had some dating with young people, but there are some miscommunications. Very good, miscommunications, maybe because of some just differences in how you were raised and just how society was at that time, sure, compared to how it is like for the people you were dating. Linju says, yes, it's okay for parents to be friends. Okay, good. We have more answers coming in. DV says, yes, it's possible for children and parents to be friends with one another. I'm good friends with my mom. That's so nice to hear. We are more like friends as I get older, but my dad is still more like a parent. Wow, that's so interesting. So I can actually 100% relate with DV. It's the same situation for me. I feel very, very close with my mother. Now that I'm older, I feel like I can talk to her very openly and honestly, and I would consider her to be a good friend of mine. I tell her a lot of things, a lot of secrets even, but not with my dad. I love my dad, but my dad still maintains a big parental figure in my life. So he likes to give advice, lots and lots of advice. And I like that too. So both methods, both relationships are fine. Very good. Winnie Lee says, yes. Okay, good. I'd like to know why. What do you think? Youngju says, although that's a personal choice, I think they have to face so many difficulties in many ways. Okay, very good. Perfect English. Hyunsuk says, when I was a kid, I thought we couldn't be friends. I think it's possible now. Okay, we might have a trend here that when you're a child, you can't be friends with your parents. But as you become older, when you're an adult yourself, sure, you can have that kind of adult relationship with your parents. I'm not sure how to say your name well. Anstev An. They say, my father always wants to teach me. Yes, I have the same relationship with my father too. Good, okay. Farm says, yes, I can. My mom is a parent and the best friend who shares my worries and joy together. How lovely. That sounds like a beautiful relationship. Oh, but my dad, okay. I think that's impossible because I can't understand my children. Never. Oh, how interesting, Park. So I would really love to know more about that and maybe about the ages of your children. Please type more if you feel like sharing. That's really interesting. Good answer. Haejung says, I agree with Hyungjung. Yes, okay. I think there's more to Haejung's message coming in, so I'll wait. Youngju says, I want to be a good friend with my future kids, even though I didn't make that kind of relationship with my parents. Perfect English. Very good. So you plan to have that kind of relationship with your children in the future. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Anybody else? Let's wait and see. Are there any other answers or should we change the subject? We have a lot of great discussion going on here. Though I'm already 40 years old, I just want to be a friend with my father who sometimes just listens to my concerns. Very well said. Very good, very good. What are some activities that you like to do with your parents, everybody? I'm curious. So with your mother or your father? What are some things that you like to do together to strengthen your relationship, to spend time with one another, to have quality time? What are some things you like to do? Obviously, my parents live in Canada, but I do call them often, very often, in fact, a few times a week. And when I am home in Canada, we like to spend lots of time together. With my father, we actually go fishing. So we spend time on a lake, fishing, talking. With my mother, we usually spend time walking in nature. She likes to take nature walks, not really hikes. Hiking, I think we don't like that much physical activity, so we don't want to exercise very hard, but we take some walks together. She likes birds, so we take pictures of birds. We drink coffee and tea together, so we do stuff like that. How about you? Okay, we have cooking. So Unju Shin says she bonds with her parents by cooking. Very nice, very nice. And Birdie, I'm not sure of your answers. Maybe going out together? Going somewhere. Yeah, going out, going for a walk perhaps. Good. Anybody else? What do you like to do with your parents? Or you could say about your children. How do you spend quality time with them? Let's see. There we go. The rest of the answer from Birdie. Going to play with my mom in a singing room with my parents. Oh, very nice. Singing room is like norebang or karaoke. Very good. Yeah. So I think that going to the norebang is such a cool and beautiful aspect of Korean culture. A lot of my Korean friends have told me that with their whole family, right? Their parents, maybe even their grandparents, with children, everybody goes to the norebang and they sing together. I think that's so lovely because in my culture in Canada, not so much singing. We don't like to sing very much. So I think that's a great tradition. Great. Anstev, I envy you. Okay. Anstev, tell me, what do you like to do with your family? What do you do to spend time with them? There we go. We play with each other. Very good. Okay, so my last question, and this is a very, very tough question, is how can we improve the generation gap in Korea? So how can we improve the problems? I'll write that there. Problems with the generation gap in Korea. What do you think are some ways or strategies to help people of different generations understand each other better? That's a hard question. So I'll give you a moment to think about it, and I would love to hear your answers. And we have more answers. Unju says, I've never been to the norebang. Okay, so maybe in some families, going to the singing room isn't a common practice. Okay, well, in the future, if you go and you enjoy yourself, please let us know about it. Farm says, I think your mom and my mom have similar styles. We like walking and tea time. Yes, it sounds like our mothers would have a lot in common. Thank you for sharing. I went to a play, the theater. It was really nice, beautiful. Wow. So that's something that you can enjoy with your family. Yes, the acting, live theater performances, maybe some live music. Very nice. We play with each other. Yes. Perfect English. Good. We play with each other. Play or just spend time with each other. That's good too. Okay, so now we're talking about how we can improve the problems regarding the generation gap in Korea. DV says, I think just spending time together would help. Very good. The more time you spend with people who are different from you, the more you can find what you have in common. Very good. if people find a common, DV, just what I was thinking. If people find a common interest, so for example, eating, board games, it will help them become more comfortable with each other. Well said. Thank you so much for sharing. We drink soju together and talk all night long. Great, great. So maybe that's something you do with your family. It's also a great way to improve your relationship, I guess, with somebody that you don't know that well. Of course, a lot of people say that drinking is kind of like a social lubricant, meaning it eases interactions within groups of people. So, okay, you can improve the generation gap in Korea by drinking soju together all night long. I like that answer. Rose Cho, hi Rose, thank you for showing up. How can we improve the generation gap? And says, developing patience and understanding each other. Perfect. Very well said. Thank you. I think that's a great answer. Patience is very key. So taking your time to understand somebody who is different from you. Excellent. Okay. Anybody else? Any final thoughts before we move on? No idea at all. That's okay. Actually, I think it's time that we move on. So right now we're going to have a little bit of a quiz to wrap up what we just talked about. So please type your answer to this question. All right. Oh, we have more messages coming in. I'll ask the question after. Hyunsuk says, I don't like drinking, but it helps me open my mind, or it helps me have an open mind. Very good. It seems that YouTube has recently been bringing generations together, says Farm. In my case, I am getting braver and communicating. So maybe you're getting braver and communicating more. Very good. Yes, I think you brought up a great point about YouTube. So we can look at the lives of so many different people of different ages, different cultures, through life vlogging. So by watching vlogs, by listening to interviews, between all sorts of different people. So you're right. YouTube is allowing us to see so many different ways of life, and it's a really nice thing. Haejung Lee says, getting older, having the same hobby is keeping a good relationship between a husband and wife. Okay, I'll read that again because I don't think I read it properly. Getting older and having the same hobby keeps or maintains a good relationship between a husband and wife. That is great advice. I think that having common hobbies or interests with your friends or your life partner is a really important thing. It gives you lots to talk about. Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Okay, very good, very good. Okay, Farm, awesome. So I will ask our first question because I just saw the time. Professor Nolan will speak soon, so let's jump into our quiz. So the first question is, what do we call a child who is around 1 to 3 years old? So think back to the beginning of the lecture when we were talking about the stages of life. What do we call a child? It's around 1 to 3 years old. At this time, they start walking, maybe a little bit of talking. Newborn. Okay, newborn would be a baby that is just born. So we need to let them grow up a little more. Toddler, very good. And an HJ. And Unju, lovely. Yes, so that's a toddler. Okay, the next one is, what's a funny expression that means I'm middle-aged? So we looked at this one a bit earlier as well. It's some way to say I'm in my 40s or 50s. Okay, and wow, 2 out of 2. That's right, I'm over the hill. Very good, very good. Okay. And so I'll type it here, but unfortunately we didn't have much time to go deep into this. But what can we call a very old person? I'll accept several answers because I didn't really talk enough about it. What do we call somebody who is very old, an old person? Toddler. Oh, I wish. No, not toddler. Oh, yeah, there you go, N. Wow, N is very fast today. N is correct. We can call an old person, an elderly person, a senior. Very good. Or maybe no spring chicken. That was one that we learned earlier too as a funny expression. Right, we can call them a senior citizen. Okay, very good. We're going to end here because, as I said, next up is Professor Nolan. He will be talking about handling emotions. After that, at 3 o'clock, Professor Hollis, the person that you were actually here to see, he will be speaking. So please stick around. And thank you so much for tuning in today. Everyone, you did such a great job. I really appreciated all your brilliant answers in the chat. And thank you for bearing with me with some of my technical difficulties. So I'll work on improving my my presentation next time. So I will be teaching YouTube Saturday classes. Let me remember. 12 p.m. So next Saturday, 12 p.m. If you'd like to hear from me again, please come back and we'll pick up where we left off. Okay, everybody. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Have a great day.